Thank you very much. So, Kelly, let me do in the quick introduction first. My name is Ha, and I actually live in Vietnam. I Since July of this year, our country got hit badly by COVID-19, and we've been seeing people suffering everywhere. So what we did was trying, beside all the help we could do, I launched a small program. This is my first time doing this. So we launched the Inside Sharing Show, where I invited, like business leaders and people in the country to come and share their career journey, anything that they can be sharing to help the people instead of wasting their time watching the news. They can learn something from the real people, and eventually the program get extended out to the people outside of Vietnam. And I leveraged the network from Adeco first, where I'm working at, and then eventually I got to know a lot more people outside of Adeco world, the people I never thought I would be able to do, that including you. So I invited my wife to join the journey, and then so she can join together and meet and great people like you are, so that we can all learn and we can share great things together. So thank you so much, Kelly, for coming to the program and sharing about you. We really appreciate that. All right.
Very happy to be here.
Thank you very much. So Vivian, she's my wife, and this is also her very first time to join the program. So I will let her do the introductions and start the programs all together. First, is that okay with you?
Hi, good morning, Kelly. Thanks for getting us into the show and have a chance talking to you. Can you share with us a little bit about the second city and to the getting to the yes journey?
Sure.
And for the audience here to know more about you.
Yeah. So the Second City is a improvisational comedy theater that started in Chicago in 1959. Actually, the origin story is really quite interesting, and it starts in the 20s and 30s on the south side of Chicago at a place called Jane Addams Hull House. And there was a woman, a social worker, who worked there by the name of Viola Spolin. And her job was to better assimilate the immigrant children coming into her care. So she invented all these games that had the kids playing together, empathizing, collaborating, a lot of them in silence or gibberish because the kids didn't always share language. Her son, Paul Sills, was studying at the University of Chicago, loved these games. He taught them to his friends, Mike Nichols, Elaine May, among others, and they formed the first improvisational theater in America in 1957 called the Compass Players. That morphs into the Second City 2 years later in 1959. So I started at Second City in 1988 as a dishwasher. It was my first job out of college, and I wanted to be a playwright. But I kept getting promoted into positions, and I actually ended up becoming the producer of Second City in 1992. So my group that I started working with were people like Stephen Colbert, Steve Carell, Amy Sedaris. I hired Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, worked with Seth Meyers, Jason Sudeikis, Keegan-Michael Key. So basically, a wide swath of famous American comedians have always come out of the Second City. And I did that from that work from 1992 to 2015, when I wrote a book called Yes And, which is about how we take all these improv exercises and translate them to the world of work and life, because the exercises are really all about getting at better ways to be a good human and to work well with other humans. And since the book came out, I've collaborated at the University of Chicago, creating a program called the Second Science Project that looks at behavioral science through the lens of improvisation and vice versa. So doing a lot of academic work that takes things like behavioral science, neuroscience, positive psychology, and basically providing evidence for why this stuff works, or using that evidence to create bespoke new exercises. So really my passion is about taking improv. It used to be all about improv on stage. Now it's all about improv off stage, to give people skills building in being more resilient, change ready, adaptable humans, which, since we're in this COVID world right now, is really, really, really necessary.
Hi, Kelly. Thank you so much for sharing that. I have a question regarding to the improvisations. What is it about? Tell us what is improvisation in the theater and how we apply it in our life, though.
So improvisation, think about it this way. Improvisation is when you're not working with a script. So I don't know about you, but no one hands me a script every morning when I get up. No one gave me a script when I came to work at Second City. So we all have to kind of figure it out. And the exercises, there's a variety of exercises. I'll give you an example. The name of my book, which was called Yes and, is because that's maybe the stickiest of improv principles. And there's science that underlies this. In behavioral economics, we have learned that people's default position is to say no or do nothing. Yes and is basically a nudge to not do that, to act. And it also is a way of basically when two people are making something out of nothing, you don't get anywhere by saying no. And you actually don't get that far by saying yes. We say you have to say yes and. You have to affirm and contribute in order to explore and heighten. So just think about this at the beginning of a brainstorm session. So 5 minutes at the beginning of brainstorm. What you really want to do, and science tells us this as well, is you're not looking for a good idea. You're looking for as many ideas as possible, because those could cascade and build and change and adapt and come together. And that's how one uses creativity to innovate. So in a creative state, the idea of having a yes and philosophy and idea, it's like you don't even have to say the words, but it's just the idea of like, don't shut it down at the beginning. Don't shut anything down. Because of my experience working in the theater is the greatest scenes that ever made it on our stage, and Second City shows are made up of short little vignettes. Sometimes they're 30 seconds long, sometimes they're 10 minutes long. It's a variety of those scenes in a show with also pure improvisation. But the best scenes always were wildly weird and like never something that you'd think would actually work, which is true of every innovation. So this is also really important in our work to make people understand. A lot of people talk about creativity and innovation and don't know that they're two different things. So you can have creativity with no innovation. You can just throw out a bunch of crazy ideas and then leave it and nothing happens. You can't have innovation without creativity. So you really need to have that messy beginning. And again, improv is all about making it okay with mess, sending you up there to fall flat in your face, so then you get back up. So if you think about these exercises that we have, and there are literally thousands of them, they all attack a different thing. They will attack our shame brain, or our fear brain, or our unwillingness to speak across difference. There's just a variety of things that human being that make it hard for human beings to live in the world. Improv gives you practices to give you more agency to work better in the world. I hope that makes sense.
Yep. So, just a curiosity. It seems like to start with improv, you need to have a collaborative mindset. Is there more principle need to be adding on in order to improve that effectively?
Yeah. So I don't know if you know Carol Dweck's work out of Stanford, but she coined a term called growth mindset, and it's basically this idea that for people to work well with each other, you've got to sort of believe that you're open to change and growth. A lot of people think that they're sort of born with their intelligence, or that they're solely responsible for all their success. Those people are often sociopaths, psychopaths, or jerks, because it's not true. No one does this alone. Any success you have, even if someone's not in the room with you, is that success is not just yours solely. Things just don't happen that way. This is particularly prevalent in America. The myth of the sole genius. Everyone talks about Steve Jobs. It's like Steve Jobs didn't invent the iPod. That was brought to him. Genius marketer, genius in other ways, also horrible human being and in other ways, because human beings they contain multitudes. We're different at different times in different contexts. And the thing about improv that I like so much as a practicality in business, as opposed to like things like Six Sigma or design thinking, is like improv isn't saying this is one path. Improv is actually saying there are millions of paths. So we're going to give you a variety of skill sets to shift and maneuver depending on the path that you're on. This is why we're so good at collaboration, and we have lots of different kinds of collaborations with different organizations and universities and that sort of thing, because we're agnostic. Like oh yeah, like you've got good ideas, let's add those ideas. Improv is just about when the human gets in touch with those ideas, these are the things that can happen to derail it, and we don't want that to happen.
Kelly, actually, I think that the law of attraction draw us together to this event tonight. I read a book called Creative Confidence by David and Tom Kelly, and when I read about that book, I actually tried to dig in more into design thinking, and I went to LinkedIn and start looking for expert in this area. And that somehow I found the talk that you've been talking about. The cross between design thinking and
Improv.
improvisations.
Yep.
Yeah, in improv. Yeah. So what is that actually? How is that cross one another?
So a lot of the principles in design thinking are about creating a more empathetic understanding of the space you're in, the humans you're talking to. A lot of design thinking is about getting in, I mean, these are the earliest sort of focus group kind of ideas, like, and not just asking someone a list of questions, but, asking them enough questions to get to the truth, because people don't share their truth with you, not right away often. The one thing also design thinking, a lot of Post-it notes, a lot of drawing it down, a lot of writing it down. And this is another thing that I've learned from the social sciences, is the importance of writing things down as a way to make them potentially become real. So what we tend to do is we have lots of ideas in our head, and they stay there, but we need to express them into the world. And the reasons we don't is we're scared someone's going to think it's a stupid idea, or we don't know, or we're a lot of people have a problem hitting send, and so. Both improv and design thinking have these, what I call nudges, which is a behavioral science term, to get you to act, to do, to try. I remember the very first, one of the first design thinking workshops I took. I was terrified because I don't feel like I'm good with art and writing down, but it sort of made me do it. And in doing so, I made discoveries. So that's all, again, all about conquering your fears. So I think there's some, great thinking that goes on with design thinking, as many different modalities are interesting. I think there's also limits to any of these. I read because I host a podcast called Getting DSN, where I talk to all kinds of academics and business people and artists. And the one thing that exhausts me in terms of reading business books is the 7-step path to success in everything. And as I sort of said before, it's like, that is just patently untrue. The minute a curveball gets thrown at you, everything goes out the window. So it's not that there's not value in these books. It's just that you need more than that. You need a particular skill set to then apply those learnings in a certain space at a certain time. And then you'll grab from something else as well, whether it's like radical candor, which is an idea that our partner Kim Scott came up with, which is a wonderful way to use effective feedback. But even Kim has adjusted she's gotten away from using the term radical to use compassionate, because a lot of people were misinterpreting her ideas around radical candor as a way to just be mean to each other, which is not what she's looking to do. She's like you should be honest with someone, but the only way you can have that honesty be heard and appreciated if that person across from you knows that you love them. That's radical candor.
Kelly, earlier of this conversation, you said that the yes and improv is important due to the people nowadays, and with the current situation. How is it in your point of view? Can you share with us?
Oh yeah, I mean, everything's had to be adjusted. I work at a live theater that is presently shut down. We've been open. We just had a bunch of cases, and so we're closed for the next 7 days. Shows on Broadway are closing down, but I am still in the office because we found ways to pivot our different work. So in addition to live theater, we do a lot of corporate workshops, and we create content for different kinds of companies. And we also have a training center that used to be all live and then was all virtual, and now is back and forth because of the virus right now. So that idea of like, when 2 years ago in March, everything hit, because we have this sort of yes and philosophy, we didn't just like throw in the towel and say, well, I guess we're done. We pivoted and we said, yep, let's try this stuff on video and through Zoom and through all the different formats, and it worked. And it's not like it was perfect at first, but we just kept having to do it, and we got better by doing. You get better by doing. So the improv mindset is vital, both in sort of day to day, because as human beings, we wildly overestimate our ability to understand what's going on in any given moment. There's so much science based on this, which is like, to actually know another's mind is virtually impossible. You can get there by asking a lot of questions, but human beings don't always even know what's going on in their mind, or body for that matter. So we have a phrase in our work, which is you need to replace blame with curiosity. So when you enter a room, enter curious, because anything could be going on. There could be a million possibilities. And the minute you start making assumptions, you're taking a step away from the truth. And so this is just a thing that is true of how human beings live in the world. And anyone who's had a job for like more than 2 minutes knows that it's utter chaos when you enter these spaces. Like, it's like, how are we even able to do this? It's amazing to me that we're not crashing into each other in the street, and we do, but that we're not doing it more. So that's kind of a miracle. And then so you're doing your work in business, but the ability to make those kinds of pivots. And the other thing too is humans are so afraid of making mistakes that it really prevents them from taking the kind of chances that leads to interesting places. Our work gives you skills building in making mistakes and recognizing that you can get up again. And so it's all about like, I'm going to make more mistakes than, I am going to do things correct in the world. This is the way I use a baseball analogy for this, which is in work, if you're going in for a review, and you screwed up 70% of the time, you think you're probably gonna get fired. If you're a Major League Baseball player or baseball player anywhere, and you're hitting the ball 30% of the time, you are probably one of the top hitters in the league. So that's a really good analogy to sort of see what, the ratio of things that we get right and things that we get wrong. We're wrong a lot of the time.
Hi, Kelly. One of the principles that I kind of get through getting and yes is the follower leadership style. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's quite interesting because how do we distinguish, not to be confused by the follower, that the capability of the leadership? Yeah. Could you please share some point of view?
Absolutely. So we've known for a long time, and this is both academia as well as like people like the management theorist Peter Drucker, that hierarchical leadership is not good and doesn't make a lot of sense. One person cannot have all the knowledge. It's just impossible. It's impossible for any one person to have all the knowledge of how things work, all the systems, all that stuff. So this idea of follow the follower, which is very akin to Drucker's work, is basically you need leadership at every level. I'm a really good writer. So if you need something to be written, hand it to me. You know what I'm not good at? I'm not good at math. Do not give me a mathematical problem. So you should really be maximizing everyone in your organization's best skill sets, not trying to put them into positions where they're not going to be effective. And that really recognizes too that we're always working in teams. Sometimes they're small, sometimes they're large, but this is like the work world is a bunch of agreements between human beings, and not just human beings you work with, but your customers as well, or your suppliers. So it's like recognizing that the heart of what we do are these relationships, and they need to be tended to. So follow the follower strips away hierarchy, recognizes that in one instance, I'm going to be leading initiative. In another instance, you're going to be leading initiative. And the more swiftly and adeptly we're able to switch that off without thinking about it, the more successful we're going to be. And that doesn't mean that you don't have like bosses who have to make decisions at certain moments. Of course that exists. But really day to day, moment to moment, that's not the way it works.
Well, Kelly, back in 2016, I got a chance to join a training for all Asia leadership team by the Article Group. And then we got to introduce the concept of yes and back then when the whole idea of the training was about the communication, how we create values for our customers, and yes and was introduced part of that. And then since you are the author of the book, yes and right, how do we build the skills, the competencies in the yes and mindset? Can you share with us so that we and the audience here can learn and build that
Yeah,
up?
there's a variety of modalities for this. So one is language. So simply stopping yourself from saying no and seeing what happens. It's really hard, especially if you have children. But there are ways of not saying no, and people don't need to get hurt. So that is, and language is vital. So but that's just one of them. The others is, and we know this from our work in the comedy part of what we do, which is how important status is, and sometimes that's physical. So thinking about how your body enters a room, or in a meeting, are you higher up than the other person? Are you behind a desk and they're not? How do you level the playing field so that you can encourage the person across from you to yes and? It's not enough to say I have an open door policy. I did that when I was a leader. I said I had an open door policy, and that didn't mean anyone felt comfortable coming into my office. So you have to find ways. Our head of people, Laurel Legler, she keeps candy and food on her desk every single day. And it's always different and it's always new. And that means we're going to go in there. So she is basically like enticing you to come in. And that's because she's the people person. So she has to make sure that people understand that like, this is a warm, safe place for you to come in and share whatever difficult conversation you might want to have. And then as a group, you also have to understand we all exist on some level of spectrum, right? Where the idea that there are introverts and extroverts is really sort of not true. We're extroverts sometimes and introverts other times, and it depends on what's going on. But when you have a successful group dynamic, it's that I understand that my friend Abby is probably going to be reluctant to share something in this moment. So I'm going to prod her if I want to make sure she's part of the conversation. I overtalk. I know that. So I have to like say, I'm going to be quiet right now for the next like 5 minutes, and everyone else, fill the room. So there's all different kind of ways you can take yes and as a concept and apply it to something very granular. And that's because that's what we're talking about. Improv isn't just like role playing. In fact, it's not that. The exercises work on a very particular kind of human phenomenon, whether it's language, whether it's body, any of those things, in a very specific thing. And you work on that skill that then you apply when you're in a room with other people, whether it's to make a comedy scene or whether it's to invent a new product or a marketing campaign. Any of those things, they're all about making something out of nothing. And that's where improv comes in.
Wow.
So Kelly, it seems like a lot of that boil down to improve your communications in order to get the good cohesive of the team. So what would be happening if that yes and not working? What else can we do?
So I'll give you another exercise that we have, which I really like. It's called last word. So we pair up two people, and their job is to have a conversation, and there's only one rule, which is that the person when the person speaking finishes their sentence, the other person has to start their sentence with the last word the other person said. So what this forces you to do is listen all the way to the end of a sentence, which is what we don't do. We do not do that as human beings. We know this on stage is crucial because when you're improvising a scene, the last few words could have really important information it's going to make you want to respond. But when we're in business settings, we're worried about like, I got to come back with something smart on this. I've got to, so you're not listening. And we're, as humans, terrible listeners. We just really are. When you practice last word, and then you take that and apply that to your day-to-day, it is one of the most powerful techniques an individual can have to communicate, because the superpower of that is that people know when they're being listened to, and people know when they're seen. And that feels really good. To know that someone across is taking the time to listen to every single word you say, to really try to understand the thing you're saying. That is one of the most powerful points of human connection that can exist. And again, I can't stress this enough. It's granular. I often say meaning is made in moments. If you can learn to galvanize your moments with your people, you will have incredible success. When I look back at any success I've had, it's always a group success, and it's always because we were all really working to be in synchrony with each other, and to get the best out of each other, which made, all of us are better than one of us. So how can we tap into our own particular group genius? And that starts at the individual listening to the other individual, and listening to understand, and not listening for like intent. I think you need to assume good intent until someone shows you that they're not worthy of that. But if you start there, really good things can happen.
Wow. So Kelly, that brought me to the question that I'm also intrigued to ask you. I want to bring you back all the way when you start your career at the Second City, right?
Yep.
You said that you were the dishwasher there, and you
Yep.
got promoted. So years ago, when you first started at Second City, did you envision to one day you become this kind of success that you are having at the moment? And
Oh,
what
God,
was the
no.
secret? What was the secret, the moment that made all of that changing for you? Can you share with us and the audience here in Vietnam?
I can. It'll be an unsatisfying answer, I'm afraid, because it's random. I could have done many different things. I think that that's the way life is. I mean, any sort of, there's times I was going to leave, a few times I was going to leave, and ended up not. And other people did leave, and some of those people had success, and other people didn't. I think the best of me was always open to the next thing, and never really I was never tied to like the last thing I did. So when I would be challenged to try something new, I'm always like, sure, that's fine. And generally speaking, those things went pretty well for me. The worst of me was probably earlier in my career. Kim Scott in the book Radical Candor identifies these different modalities of communication. The worst is obnoxious aggression. I tended not to do that. The best is radical candor. I didn't tend to do that either. But in the middle are two things: manipulative insincerity, which is not something I think I trafficked in, but the other is ruinous empathy, which I did. And ruinous empathy is when you care so much you don't say a thing, and that is bad. So I really know I let down certain employees when I knew that there were issues that I could see, that others can see, and no one was saying a thing. And it's like, that's not good for anyone. If you care about someone, you're going to try to help them improve and be better. And my best bosses I've ever had were ones who came to me and like, where are you stuck? How can I help you get unstuck? Or here's a thing I see that you might struggle with. Can we get you coaching or any of that stuff? And the majority of my career, I didn't get that. And in fact, one of the joys of Second City right now, because we got sold recently, and we're sort of much smaller and a little more nimble, but like the boss I have is great, and she really is focused on my success as it relates to Second City's success, and she's not afraid to tell me a hard truth. But by the same token, the reason she isn't afraid of that is because I know she cares about me. Like legit, and it's vice versa, and that's why we're able to work well together, because we both know we care, and we also have the same goal in mind, which is to make the business as successful as possible for the people who work here and the people who buy our products.
Yeah, so it seems like it is a new team that you have. Thank you, because for the you care kind of concept, right?
Yeah. So when we started working at doing the program at the University of Chicago, one of the first things that the scientists asked us was, what is show us a Second City exercise so we can get started. So we did yes and for them. And the question they had at the end was like, they said, we get this. There's actually plenty of science to back up why that's effective. But what happens when you have sort of an intractable issue that you just disagree on? And this is particularly relevant, I think, right now in the world we live in. And how do you stay inside a difficult conversation? So we didn't know, they didn't quite know. So they went back and looked at the literature. We went back and worked out improvisationally. And when we came together, we discovered another pillar to the yes and exercise. And that's thank you because. And the idea is if we are in disagreement over something and we need to stay in the conversation, the way we do that is we thank the person for the thing we don't agree with. So that sets off the gratitude part of their brain, makes them open to the conversation. And then the because part is crucial. We have to find something that they said that we do agree with to create some level of bond to continue forward. So the example I often use is I had friends who were anti-vaccine, and this is before the pandemic. But it was friends of my daughters, and I wanted them to stay in contact. And so when they told me they're anti-vaccine, I said, thank you, because I know you care for your daughter so much. You don't want these vaccines to hurt her. I feel the same way about my daughter. I don't want her to get hurt by not having vaccines. So we're actually working from the same place. And it really allowed us to, the girls stayed in touch by texting and FaceTiming and all that stuff. They just couldn't be in the same room. And this is, oh God, we live, certainly in my country, I don't know as much about your country right now, but my country is being torn apart by people who just refuse to see the humanity in each other and politicizing everything. And the fact is we don't do this without each other. There's no other way to do this. The human condition relies on people working together to solve problems and to move forward. And the more we demonize each other, the farther away we get from being able to do this. And so what I love about Thank You Because is it's a small starting point just in your own life to see if you can get better at cooperating even with people you disagree with.
Well, basically, you wrote the book about yes and already. Are you planning to write another book about thank you because?
I am. I just spoke to my book agent 3 weeks ago. Yeah, and actually I'm going to co-write it with my wife, Ann Libra. She's finishing up her second book on comedy theory. And Ann headed up the Second Science Project. She was the chief pedagogy officer. So she's really the educator in the family. I'm more the sort of producer and evangelist for this work. So yeah, we're really excited about letting people know how we've taken this work, added these sort of academic elements, brought them to different spaces, not just in corporate America, but also in healthcare and in home caregiving. And we've worked with kids on the spectrum and people with Parkinson's. And, you know, the great thing about improv is anything that involves human beings working well with other human beings, you know, that there's a reason to have an improv skill.
Wow, that's very amazing. And will be exciting to look forward for all the works that you're about to introduce to the world. So thank you so much, Kelly, for your time spending with Vivian and I today, and for the information that you share for the audience here in Vietnam. We really appreciate it. We wish your family all the best in the world. We wish you guys have a wonderful holiday season. And if ever you guys come into our country, we would love to see you and your family all in person.
Oh, thank you so much. I would love that. Yes, thank you. And I'll send you the link. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Kelly.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.